Scattered all over the country.
All over the place. And I'll be back here at midnight with Eric Shawn for all-night coverage, part of that 67 hours, nonstop.
Fox and Friends starts right now.
Bye.
You have to get everyone you know to the polls. We are going to win. We are going to have one of the great victories of all time.
But we got work to do. So please, you've got to get out. You've got to get to the polls. You've got to take people to the polls. Nobody should sit this one out.
The closest people to Hillary Clinton, they keep pleading the fifth. Maybe it's time they stop doing that and actually tell the truth to the American people. They haven't done that yet.
He's already an enormous force in American politics. I believe the momentum is with him.
Hillary Clinton is the most corrupt person ever to seek the office of the presidency of the United States.
Don't leave it to others. Use your voice and your vote.
Well, if Trump wins, then America wins.
This election is a moment of reckoning. It is a choice between division or unity.
This is a marathon. We're not playing games, right? Hillary right now is fast asleep. She's sleeping so beautifully.
I don't know what an interesting journey. I don't know what. It's been a long journey. Maybe that's the segue.
Wow, it really has. We are one day away until you get to walk into the polls and vote, unless you've done early voting.
Yeah, exactly.
Among the 41 million people have voted already.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, it's funny you should bring that up, Brian, because that actually tells us about the lead story today. And that is, of course, James Comey sent another letter to Congress yesterday and said, you know what, we stand by what we said earlier. On the cover of the New York Post, it says, saved at the bell regarding Hillary. But the New York Post, or rather the Daily News, is steamed because they say now he tells us after how many million voted?
41 million people voted.
Oh, sure. Fine. Thanks a lot,
That's
Mr.
why there's the question. Should there be early voting? Do you have all the facts?
So, you know, the rumors were that 650,000 emails were on Anthony Weiner's computer from Uma Abedin. So the question was, as the Wall Street Journal kept breaking down every day how many FBI agents and how much the Justice Department wanted some type of conclusion before Election Day. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a second, why are they talking about this sophisticated software? Why are they talking about culling into categories? And here's why. They have another chapter 2 weeks ago when that letter came out from Comey saying we're going to revisit the Hillary Clinton use of that private server. Now we understand that so far all they will tell us is that nothing has changed since July. No reason to prosecute.
So James Comey reopened the case right before the Friday before Halloween.
Right.
10 days later, yesterday, he decides to close that case. Republicans left feeling discouraged and angry this morning. Democrats feeling relieved.
Well, here's the thing. So James Comey said we have not changed our conclusions. Remember what their conclusions were back in July, that Hillary Clinton was reckless and careless, that she lied about classified information, that she lied about the number of devices, and it goes on and on. And if you're thinking to yourself, well, Hillary Clinton's in the clear. No, she's not. Keep in mind, the Clinton Foundation is still under criminal investigation by the FBI. The man who is the chairman of the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee, Jason Chaffetz, had this to say about the Clinton conclusion. If she thinks she's clean, then tell everybody around her to go ahead and stop pleading the fifth, come to Congress and tell us the truth, because the closest people to Hillary Clinton, they keep pleading the fifth. Maybe it's time they stop doing that and actually tell the truth to the American people. They haven't done that yet.
Comes down to judgment. If you're happy with her key aide giving this classified information, in some cases, and it could be. By the way, there were classified information, at least 10 different emails on the last batch that came through. But James Comey says, as irresponsible as it was, it's not. He doesn't believe it was indictment worthy. He doesn't think it was a prosecutable case. Let the legal minds debate that. But the judgment, Ainsley, of should you be leaving this out with a mutant like Anthony Weiner having access to it? Should you be letting your maid print out classified information?
And if it took a year to go through 55,000 emails, how can you go through 650,000 in a matter of 10 days? Yeah. Critics are questioning that, but other people say all you have to do is search for certain keywords, and it's easy to go through these emails.
There were a lot of duplicates. There were also some classified documents in there, but they had seen them before. Anyway, more on that a little later on.
Well, with just one day to go, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, they're blitzing the battleground states. They're trying to win over critical votes in the home stretch.
The Clinton campaign making stops in Colorado, Michigan, New Hampshire, Pennsylvania, Virginia, North Carolina, and Florida. Meanwhile, the Trump campaign hitting Minnesota, Michigan, New Hampshire, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Florida as well.
Wow. Meanwhile, Fox News team coverage goes like this. John Roberts has chosen Sarasota to stay there. I don't want you flying all around. And we have Mike Emanuel, who's following the Clinton camp in Pittsburgh. Guys, who do you want to go with first?
The teleprompter says Mike Emanuel.
All right, we got to go with the prompter. Sorry, John. Wait there. Hi, Mike.
Steve, Brian, Ainsley, good morning to you. On this election eve, Hillary Clinton will be making 4 campaign stops in 3 states, some unusual for a Democrat. Clinton will make 2 stops here in Pennsylvania, which is typically a safe state for Democrats. She'll campaign on a college campus in Michigan, with polls there showing a very close race. And then Clinton will do a late-night rally in the swing state of North Carolina. Her campaign is defending the need to campaign there in the Great Lakes state.
Going to Michigan, by the way, is very consistent with our plan because Michigan is one of the states we call game day states. No early voting. We have to make sure we get there in the last few days, keep people ginned up, getting them out to vote.
So Clinton, the Democratic nominee, will spend a fair amount of time on defense in the final hours of this 2016 campaign. The campaign's argument, as you just heard, is essentially these states don't do early voting, so it's all about driving turnout for tomorrow. And Clinton herself will make her closing argument.
Our core values are being tested in this election. This election is a moment of reckoning. It is a choice between division or unity, between strong, steady leadership or a loose cannon who could put everything at risk.
But Clinton had her husband yesterday in Michigan. The president is going to Michigan today, and so is Hillary Clinton herself. So there is clearly concern there in the Midwest. Steve, Ainsley, Brian.
All right, Mike in Pittsburgh, thank you very much. Meanwhile, Donald Trump not wasting a second, holding rallies across 5 different states in the next 24 hours.
And the Trump train is showing no signs of stopping today.
All right, Fox News senior national correspondent John Roberts, as I mentioned before, remains in Sarasota with the Republicans' final push. John, where's the Mo?
Brian, good morning to you. Good morning to you, Ainsley and Steve as well. You know, Donald Trump really, the only way you can say it is kicking at the jams here in these last couple of days. 10 events, 10 states over 2 days, 48 hours. An event in Leesburg, Virginia last night that was supposed to start at 9:30. Trump did not take the stage until 20 minutes after midnight, but a big crowd still enthusiastically greeting him as he said, whoa, today has been like a marathon. And as you mentioned, he's going to do it again today. Trump, by the way, doing a complete about-face again on James Comey, the FBI director, after he said that Hillary Clinton likely didn't warrant facing prosecution for the email scandal at this point. Trump had praised Comey for having the courage to reopen this investigation. Last night, doubling down on his idea that the whole game is rigged, trying to motivate people out to the polls. Here's what he said in Leesburg.
You heard about today. But right now, she's being protected by a totally rigged system. Hillary Clinton is guilty. She knows it. The FBI knows it. The people. The FBI, they know it's, I think it's very embarrassing to them.
So 5 more states again today. Donald Trump's path to victory. He's got to win everything that Mitt Romney won in 2012 and add Nevada, Iowa, Ohio, Florida, New Hampshire, and the 2nd congressional district in Maine. By the way, early voting here in Florida over. Nearly 7 million people either cast or returned ballots. That's a huge number. So there's about 1.5 to 2 million people left that the campaigns are going to try to get between now and tomorrow night. Brian, Steve, Ainsley?
It is so intense. Thanks so much, John. We'll be back with John again. Well, you know, for the longest time, I don't know if you've heard Donald Trump say this, the system is rigged. Have you heard him mention that?
Once or twice.
It seems like
actually, Bill Clinton, we heard about that in WikiLeaks. Bill Clinton agreed with Donald Trump that the system is rigged against them.
Is there any evidence that came out today that might back up Donald Trump's cause?
Funny you should ask, because there is. Apparently, within the DNC, the Democratic National Committee, they found out that Wolf Blitzer over at CNN was going to have an interview with Donald Trump. This was back in April. So the DNC, the Democratic National Convention, according to WikiLeaks, was sending emails within the Democratic National Committee asking, hey, any questions that you think that Wolf Blitzer should ask Donald Trump? I need your questions by 10:30.
CNN solicited the DNC. Hey, come up with some good questions. For instance, here, according to WikiLeaks, is one. I believe this is from Lauren Dillon, who is a DNC research director, I believe. Yes. Wolf Blitzer is interviewing Trump on Tuesday ahead of his foreign policy address on Wednesday. Please send me thoughts by 10 a.m. tomorrow.
Yeah, like, for example, and here's some of the questions they got back. Who helped you write the foreign policy speech you're giving tomorrow? Which advisors specifically did you talk to? What advice did they give you? So the DNC, before they even had an opponent in Donald Trump or Ted Cruz, or I guess Governor Kasich had just bowed out, the DNC was giving CNN questions after being solicited for questions for the Republican nominee.
But for CNN to call them up and say, hey, we're talking to Donald Trump, we're talking to Ted Cruz, DNC, have any good questions? Maybe some gotcha questions? Essentially, that's what they were asking for, and apparently it sounds like they got them.
And this was the same batch that eventually led to Debbie Wasserman Schultz stepping down.
Also, apparently, in a separate WikiLeaks yesterday, it was revealed that the Washington Post columnist Dana Milbank asked the DNC for help on researching a project. He was doing a column about some outrageous things that Donald Trump had said, so he reached out to the DNC, hey, can you do my legwork for me? So when people say that the CNN is the Clinton News Network, you go,
Donna Brazile setting up Hillary Clinton against Bernie Sanders, and then this.
All right, well, guys, we talked about the marathon here in the city yesterday, the New York City Marathon. Well, today the marathon here begins. Fox News is on the air for 67 straight hours for live election coverage. Fox and Friends is going to be live tomorrow and Wednesday morning, starting at 5 a.m. to bring you the up-to-the-minute results and analysis.
All right, plug in the coffee pot. In the meantime, a dozen minutes after the top of the hour on this Monday, and we've got a Fox News alert for you right now. Janet Reno, the first woman to serve as Attorney General of the United States, has died at the age of 78.
Her godfather confirming that she passed away early this morning from complications of Parkinson's disease.
Heather Nauert has that story and more. Hey, Heather.
Yeah, and so many of us look back on her career, a controversial career. Certainly, Janet Reno, a former Miami prosecutor, served our nation as Attorney General nearly 8 years under President Bill Clinton. She held that post longer than any other sitting Attorney General in nearly a century, but her tenure not without controversy.
I made the decision. I'm accountable. The buck stops with me, and nobody ever accused me of running from a decision that I made based on the best information that I had. I don't do spin.
Well, she was one of the administration's most polarizing figures. Many of our viewers will remember this. She was at the center of political firestorms, including this one, the deadly raid on the Branch Davidian compound in Waco, Texas, that ended up in about 80 people dying as a result, including children. And then this, the armed seizure of the child Cuban refugee, Elian Gonzalez. In 2002, she ran an unsuccessful bid for governor of Florida, and that ended her public career. She spent her final days at her home in Miami. She was 78 years old. And that's your headline right now. I'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Heather. All right, still ahead on this Monday, do the laundry, clean the kitchen, handle the classified government documents. Well, that was actually one of the duties of Hillary Clinton's personal maid, the brand new jaw-dropping emails about the housekeeper and classified information coming up.
And if Donald Trump wants to win, he's going to have to turn the blue states on this map red. But what are his chances? Kristen Solstice Anderson is here with Trump's path to victory. Come on in.
Koch Industries.
Came to Minnesota. I took so much heat. They all said on television, what is he going to Minnesota? You know, these guys have been saying this for me for 2 years, by the way. So far in 2 years, I've been right and they've been wrong.
Just hours before the election, Donald Trump spent some time in Minnesota, but polls show he's still 6 points behind her there. Is it possible for him to turn that blue state red? Here now to discuss this and other blue states that could be in play, Republican pollster Kristen Solstice Anderson. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Steve.
We had Kellyanne Conway on the show yesterday, and she said their internal polling showed that he was just 3 points behind her in Minnesota. So what the heck? Why not try it?
Well, I think why not try it is a good question. But when you're this close to Election Day, the biggest resource that a candidate has is their time. And so if you're going to states that are sort of outside your normal list of states, it means one of two things. Either you think you're behind other places and you've got to put something new in play, or you're up so far that you have the luxury of spending that time. Minnesota may be a bit of a reach. I think other states like Michigan may be slightly more available to Trump than Minnesota is.
Okay, so let's talk about your path to 270. That's the magic number.
It is the magic number. So I think Donald Trump has a state like Iowa. I think he's got Ohio likely to be in his column. But then when we've put together these paths for him before, states like Florida and Nevada were always part of the equation. And right now, with the early vote coming in, those states look
you've got Florida going to her.
I have Florida going to her because of some of this early vote data, which means, by the way, that he's got to put new states in play. So if you've got a state like a Michigan, you've got a state like Wisconsin, where the Latino population that is surging in some of these Sun Belt states may be making it harder for Trump. Do you go look at a Michigan where Latino voters are only 3% of the equation, and you try to get more sort of your white voters to turn out there and put that state in your column.
I know the Comey announcement last night turned everything upside down, but the trend lines have been to Donald Trump's favor. And in fact, Nate Silver, the esteemed statistician who got all 50 states right last time, he said that she is one state away from losing the Electoral College.
So Democrats came into this race with a pretty serious, what we call the blue wall, all of these states that have been Democratic for a long time and were expected to be Democratic in the future. But in the event that you've got her only up by 3 in national polls, that's margin of error.
Interesting. I've read something from John Zogby, another pollster, who said if there was ever going to be a year that pollsters got it wrong, this could be it, because there's so many challenges you face.
Huge challenge in our industry.
All right. Prediction?
I think she's got it by about 322 electoral votes. And she'll win popular vote by 3 to 4 points.
Well, let's see. Kristen Soltis Anderson, always a pleasure. Thank you very much. All right. Meanwhile, 20 after the top of the hour on this Monday, the FBI has let Hillary off the hook for her email scandal again. But will the voters do the same? We've got a political panel here to weigh in. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. And another WikiLeaks bombshell. Did the Clinton Foundation pay for Chelsea's wedding and living expenses for a decade? We got a live report coming up.
I travel the world and the 7 seas. Everybody.
This program is brought to you by the Jaguar.
And friends, 24 minutes after the hour, a couple quick headlines to bring you now. Overnight, a magnitude 5.0 earthquake rocking central Oklahoma, about 50 miles southwest of Tulsa. A few people are now being treated for minor injuries after that quake destroyed at least 4 buildings in the city of Cushing. Twitter going dark overnight. At the same time, WikiLeaks reported a cyber attack on its email publication servers. Well, this after WikiLeaks published the latest trove of DNC emails. The outage lasted only for a few minutes. The sites were back online soon after. You may remember several other popular websites were taken down in a similar attack just last month. And Philadelphia's transit strike that we've been telling you about is now over. Union workers reaching a tentative agreement with the transit authority. Buses and trains are now expected to be back up and running within the next 24 hours to help get voters to the polls. The union still needs to sign off on the deal. We thought that might happen just in time for the election. Brian?
Okay, thanks a lot, Heather. Hillary Clinton off the hook, it seems, once again. In a bombshell announcement yesterday, FBI Director James Comey writes this letter, quote, "Since my letter, the FBI investigative team have been working around the clock to process and review a large volume of emails." He wouldn't say 650,000. "Based on our review, we have not changed our conclusion. But will voters let her off the hook?" Let's ask our political panel right now. GOP strategist Phil Stutz is here. Tez Figaro is here. She's an independent and former Sanders supporter. And Marcy Stech is here, the VP of the Democratic group, Emily's List. Marcy, is this now put the wind back in Hillary's sails?
Well, it certainly takes the wind out of Donald Trump's sails. I mean, the bottom line is this was the base of his entire last week on the campaign trail. He was giving voters nothing to vote for. All he was doing was talking about Hillary Clinton and emails, Hillary Clinton emails. The case has been closed. You know, we know the same thing that we know back in July, that, you know, questions have been asked and answered. And I think 24 hours before the polls open in these critical key states, this is not a good look for Donald Trump. He's got to figure out something new in the next 24 hours.
What Marcy's saying is not without merit, but you could also say, too, that shows a judgment. So an accused pedophile, Congressman Weiner, gets access to this. Does that play to the judgment call?
Well, it may play to the judgment call. I actually think it's a reverse effect, just to look at this a little differently. I think in states like Michigan and Pennsylvania that are election day, voting, whereas opposed to Florida and North Carolina, it's kind of, the cake is kind of already baked, that this could have a negative effect on Hillary. Think about it this way: how angry the voters are that support Trump in these states that the charges weren't brought against her, that the case is now closed.
So they're more motivated.
I think they could be more motivated.
Very interesting. Tez, your thoughts about this coming out? I know you got to be somewhat taken aback, because now all these emails, these WikiLeaks stuff come out, and your candidate never really had a shot to begin with.
Right. I mean, you're not really taken aback, because we've seen it firsthand. The WikiLeaks has given us an opportunity, to show America what we've been talking about year over year. And I would say, just to respectfully disagree, that the case is not closed. On Wednesday is going to determine if Hillary Clinton wins. She's going to have a hard 4 years, because people are going to continue to expose. They're going to continue to talk about the emails. They're going to continue to talk about the WikiLeaks, and she will have a hard time governing. So it's not over. It's nothing to see here. Let's just move on and go to the election. It's actually going to start a bigger movement on Wednesday.
Yeah, you're right, because the Republicans will keep the House. And you better believe there are going to be a lot of investigations over the next 4 years. And frankly, I think it's one of the things that if Hillary would win, that would unify the Republican Party, because now we have a common person that we can put our energy behind.
And more angst.
Well, we have seen this political witch hunt go after Hillary Clinton for now decades, right? Whether it's on her honest and trustworthy, we've seen it now ever since she was in the political sphere. I think the idea of using taxpayer dollars to fund an apparatus to take her down as president of the United States is going to be a losing strategy for Republicans.
Decades, then get ready for another 4 years. She'll be good and practice and ready to go for another 4 years.
There's something there.
This is about priorities.
I mean,
right?
listen,
and the people's priority is to continue to monitor Hillary.
The foundation is still being investigated too, Brian. The foundation is still being investigated.
It's ongoing. Marcy, just real quick, I think you're right. It would be cause a lot of angst for this investigation to continue. But isn't this all self-inflicted? If the foundation didn't have some dicey relationships, if she didn't choose the private server, there would be nothing to really go after.
Well, look, she has had a long and storied career of doing what she does best, which is to fight for children, to fight for families, to do that through the foundation. You want to know
what she does best.
I think talking, the conversation that we are having right now is not the conversation that voters are having as they are deciding who to vote for.
Let's
talk about it.
Welcome to Thanksgiving in America in 2016. Thanks so much. Great conversation just tapping the surface. Meanwhile, coming up straight ahead, Donald Trump has never met Russian President Vladimir Putin. But Democrats aren't going to let facts get in the way of a good attack line. Up next, the DNC's unbelievable plan to smear the Republican nominee. And he hasn't been smeared yet, so this is going to be new. And she was hired to do the laundry, clean the kitchen, and print out details of drone strikes in Pakistan. Yep, the brand new jaw-dropping details on Hillary's maid when Tucker Carlson joins us next. By the way, he's got a 7 o'clock show at night. He gets to sleep soon.
And they all lived happily ever after.
Not!
Crazy stuff.
That was from Saturday Night Live,
You know what,
obviously.
that opening animation, one day.
I know.
It was so jaw-dropping to see one day.
Unbelievable.
Brand new DNC email from WikiLeaks revealing a sinister strategy to take down Donald Trump.
The Democratic Party conspiring to paint the Republican nominee as a sexual predator and a friend of Vladimir Putin.
I'm glad that didn't come to fruition. Kristen Fisher has been poring over the latest WikiLeaks release and joins us right now from Washington, D.C. with the latest. Kristen, as explosive as we've seen so far.
Yeah, so far what we're finding is a lot of what you might expect to find in the inboxes of DNC staffers in the middle of a heated election year. They're trying to come up with ways to take down Donald Trump. For instance, in one email from April of this year, some DNC staffers are discussing an article about a former foreign policy advisor to Rand Paul, a man by the name of Dimitri Sims, who allegedly had ties to the Russian government. Well, one DNC staffer writes, "We don't have a ton on Sims, but the pro-Russia stuff ties in pretty well to the idea that Trump is too friendly with Putin, weak on Russia." And that, of course, as we all know, has become a central theme of the Clinton campaign, that Trump is simply Putin's puppet. Now, another email appears to show several DNC staffers discussing whether or not to post a fake Craigslist ad for a job with the Trump organization. Now, it's clearly a joke. It essentially says that all female applicants must be attractive. But ultimately, according to WikiLeaks, they didn't post it because, quote, "the defamation risk here is too high. I know we are going for a parody, but given the content of the post is private business practices, sexual harassment, etc., we would open ourselves up to a defamation suit if we posted." Now, so far, the DNC has not commented about this latest leak. The second one this election cycle, don't forget. But Clinton's communications director did post this yesterday on Twitter. Quote, "Friends, please remember that if you see a whopper of a WikiLeaks in the next 2 days, it's probably fake." So there is certainly a chance that some of these emails could be made up by WikiLeaks. But then again, their first leak of DNC emails led to the ouster of former DNC chairwoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz. So WikiLeaks certainly has a track record of being accurate and for causing serious repercussions. Brian Ainsley and Steve.
You're right about both. All right, Kristen, thank you very much. Look who's here. It's the new host of the 7 p.m. show. Starts a week from today right here on the Fox News channel.
It's great to be here. Thank you, Wayne.
Do you have a title for the show yet?
I think that's 11:30 me this morning.
Okay.
Yeah, there are lots of ideas.
I watched you over the weekend saying goodbye to everyone, and they played this clip of all of his segments, and at the end they come back to him, and I thought you were going to say something like, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to miss you," which you eventually did, but you said, "I realize how humiliating this job is."
It's so good for your soul. It really is. It's so important to be reduced to your basic self, once in a while. Take it down a little bit.
Because oftentimes we do some silly things. We put on hats, we eat things.
It is so good for you to eat kielbasa on TV. You know what I mean?
Right. I look forward to the format of the new show. You'll put more cooking segments at 7.
Right.
Because Brittany wanted to do cooking, got big pushback in D.C.
Cooking segments rate really well in prime time.
I know they
Cooking in the
We'll
capital.
see.
Well, you know what? Speaking of cooking, let's talk a little bit about a housekeeper.
Yes.
Marina Santos is the housekeeper for Hillary Clinton, and it has been revealed, apparently, and these are from the State Department emails that were released on Friday night, about 1,000 documents. Apparently, she was in charge of printing out all sorts of classified information to Hillary Clinton, and then, according to some of the documents, the instruction was just leave them on the bench. So she would print out something classified, leave it on the bench, out in public view. If the cable guy stopped by, he could eyeball it. If somebody, one of the neighbor kids stopped by, it was all right there.
Well, we already know that Hillary paid no attention to security protocols, which is why she put all this classified information on an unsecured server. But this just kind of sums it up perfectly in one story, really. Getting your housekeeper to do it. I mean, this series of emails confirms every bad suspicion you ever had about the attitudes of people in power, specifically the Clintons, but not just the Clintons. Kind of everybody who's been in Washington a long time and gotten rich being there, all have this entitlement attitude that is so corrosive of good government. I mean, it really is like the late Ottoman Empire. Have my housekeeper do it. I mean, it's so decadent, actually.
Right, and a lot of people run on the Ottoman Empire ticket and they're not successful.
And look what happened to the Ottoman Empire.
And it eventually would break up, but don't give it away. Tucker, here's the thing. People get caught up as a criminal, is it prosecutable? No, it's not a matter. Just look at this. Just keep it simple for us non-lawyers. Is judgment. If you're looking to hire somebody for the most important job in the country, how did they do in their last job? What judgment did they have? And that's what you decide when you pull the curtain back in the booth.
I have power, you don't. I'm rich, you're not. I'm famous, you never will be. I'm going to do exactly what I want, even while holding you to laws that, penalize you for breaking them. I mean, this is the attitude that people are rebelling against. We'll see if they're successful or not, but in this election, they don't like that. And why would they? It's supposed to be a democracy. We're all equal under the law, and this reveals an attitude very different from that.
But Tucker, her husband says she deserves it.
Well,
in a transcript, just in case the audience is not familiar with this story, in a transcript, he says she deserves this. This was a speech she had to give, and she will not disappoint you. But to get there, we have to not disappoint her. So it's about the voter not disappointing her instead of her disappointing.
Well, that's our main job. Can I just say this? I can't control myself. I always go coach on the train, back to Washington, New York. I went first class yesterday. It was full of journalists, the car. And I thought to myself, this is why they're all totally for Hillary, because they so completely have absorbed the attitudes of the ruling class in Washington. They so strongly identify with people in power that, of course, they're for Hillary. Everybody in that world has the same attitude, which is, shut up, dumb people, obey.
Yeah, so you didn't take the Trump train? You took
No, I didn't. And I mean, but I was like, because I ride this train every week, and I never, I never see anybody I know. They're all in the first class car. They're journalists. No wonder they're totally for Hillary.
Well, plus, everybody knows you now that you have your own show. They're like, hey, there's Tucker. Meanwhile, they were walking right by you last week.
I sat alone.
The attitude you described, though, is why there's this what Donald Trump calls a movement in the country where people are just hacked off about what goes on in Washington, D.C.
Of course they are.
They want to pull the plug on it.
But this is the attitude that abets corruption, that this doesn't apply to me. Like, I'm above that.
I got to get you something. You used to work at CNN for years. Are you surprised that they were soliciting questions from the DNC?
I am surprised. That's crossing
Wolf Blitzer to what asked to Donald Trump?
It's crossing a bright line. Asking a political party for questions for their opponent?
To ask Donald
kidding?
Trump?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's beyond belief. And I have to say, news organizations, not just CNN, but especially CNN, are very bad at policing themselves. They set themselves, we're the watchdog, keeping an eye on those in power, but who's keeping an eye on them? Nobody. If they don't do a deep forensic dive on how this happened and how it won't happen again, then that's corruption.
All right, well, Tucker is moving on up to 7 p.m. and to first class, apparently.
No, that was the last time. I don't want to ride with journalists.
Next time you get to drive the train. All right, Tucker, thank you.
I'm sure you entertained them all and had free drinks.
All right, still ahead on this Monday, Florida is do or die for Donald Trump, and the campaign is leaving no stone unturned.
This movement is coming together. Florida is coming together. America's coming together. We're going to make Donald Trump the next president of the United States of America.
So how close is it the day before the election? We're live in the critical battleground state with the latest numbers coming up next.
And a brand new WikiLeaks bombshell. Did the Clinton Foundation fund Chelsea Clinton's wedding and living expenses for a decade? We have a live report on that.
She does have a $10 million apartment. Who paid for that?
Good morning. Welcome back to Fox and Friends. 15 minutes before the hour now, starting with a Fox News alert. A sheriff's deputy killed and another one clinging to life this morning after a dispute between neighbors turns deadly. The Georgia deputies responding to a complaint in the town of Byron. Two people say a neighbor threatened them with a gun for riding a four-wheeler and a motorcycle up and down the block. When deputies arrived, the suspects started shooting at them. Sergeant Patrick Sondren died from his injuries. The other deputy is in critical condition this morning. We'll keep you posted on any updates. Former felons may decide who wins Virginia in tomorrow's election. Since July, the Democrat Governor Terry McAuliffe has restored voting rights to more than 67,000 former inmates. 21,000 of them registered and could turn out at polling stations tomorrow. We'll keep an eye on that story as well. Ainsley?
Just hours until the presidential election, and once again, Florida is taking center stage.
Yep, the Sunshine State all tied up and heading for what could be a photo finish.
Yeah, tied at 45-45. Phil Kidding live in Hialeah, Florida, breaking down why Florida is so crucial for both candidates. Hey, Phil.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Once again, Florida, the biggest prize of the battleground states, the largest of the swing toss-up states. And again, just like 4 years ago at this point, we headed to Election Day in absolute dead heat. Take a look at the latest CBS polling data. A 45% to 45% Clinton and Trump tie, meaning it's going to come down to in-person voter turnout tomorrow on Election Day. Now, on Sunday in Florida, the final day of early voting, on behalf of the Clinton campaign, President Obama rallied heavily Hispanic Kissimmee, Florida. Meanwhile, Trump running mate Governor Mike Pence visited reliably Republican Panama City.
This movement is coming together. Florida is coming together. America's coming together. We're going to make Donald Trump next president of the United States of America.
If we win Florida, it's a wrap. We win Florida, it's over.
Democratic strongholds Miami-Dade County and Broward County, the two most populous counties in the state of Florida, saw historically high early voter turnout yesterday on Sunday, never before seen for early voting. Meanwhile, today we will have on the trail in Florida Vice President Joe Biden up in the Democratic oasis in the panhandle of Tallahassee, then down to St. Petersburg for a Get Out the Vote concert with Jimmy Buffett. Meanwhile, Donald Trump himself will rally in Sarasota, Florida. And for Donald Trump, this will be his 6th in-person visit in the Sunshine State in the past 2 weeks. Back to you.
And of course, he also has a house down there in Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah, and
all right.
that's how important that state is.
I'm very curious to see what the Fox poll says, because the Fox poll comes out, our final poll comes out today to see where Florida is really at.
6 p.m., tune in to Special Report. Meantime, a dozen minutes before the top of the hour on this Monday, how will the Trump campaign respond now that Hillary Clinton is not in trouble with the FBI? Again, Trump Deputy Campaign Manager David Bossie here to react, coming up in 12 minutes.
I wonder if he's going to have that beard. And a brand new WikiLeaks bombshell. Did the Clinton Foundation fund Chelsea's wedding and living expenses for a decade? Pete Hegseth says that's 100% illegal. He's live next.
Well, the email were about the wedding.
Wow. 1 day to go until Election Day, and the WikiLeaks bombshells still going on. The latest revealing that the Clinton Foundation helped pay for Chelsea Clinton's wedding and other living expenses. Pete Hegseth is a Fox News contributor who has also run charities and foundations, and he is here to react. You ran foundations that were also 501c3s,
Yes.
tax-exempt foundations.
Charities.
Now, how can the Clinton Foundation, how can they legally use money to pay for their daughter's wedding?
I mean, they're not supposed to. They can't. They shouldn't, but they did. And it's based on basic ethics. So I've run 501c3 charities, veterans organizations, and the money that you get is given by donors who trust in good faith you will use it for the mission you said you would, which is what you told the IRS as well. I had to fire an employee once who was buying personal items on the credit card for the 501c3. We found out how much it was, fired him on the spot, and he paid it all back because you have a responsibility to your donors and to the mission of that organization. Clearly, because this was run more like a political clearinghouse than a foundation, it was just a slush fund for them to do whatever they wanted to do.
All right, so for the folks at home, if you're asking, how do you know this is happening? Well, there's an email in the WikiLeaks that was Doug Bann, who runs the foundation. He sent this email to John Podesta, who is currently running Hillary Clinton's campaign. It says the investigation into her getting paid for campaigning, meaning Chelsea Clinton, using foundation resources for her wedding and life for a decade, taxes on money from her parents. I hope that you will speak to her and end this once we go down this road.
Yeah. So what they were doing is inflating her salary as a reflection for campaign events that she was doing. There's a lot of flexibility you can have as a foundation, which are it's just straight up unethical. One thing you cannot do is mix political activity with a 501c3 charity. So if she's taking her time to go on the campaign trail for her mother, and it's proof right here in these emails.
Maybe this is why when her mom says, I deleted emails about yoga, and my daughter's wedding. Maybe this is why.
You know, it just might. Who knows? I mean, that was all a lie to begin with. We've found out since anyway. But yeah, if you're paying your daughter to campaign for you through charitable donations that you've gotten from countries like Saudi Arabia and elsewhere, is there a worse circle than that? And the fact that what she did with private and classified information is bad enough. But the foundation is it's all the real scandal, but is yet another and just as large of a scandal because it is straight up illegal to do political activity with money from a 501c3.
So Chelsea's on the payroll for the foundation.
Sure.
And then they say, well, she's campaigning for her mother, so let's give her a little bit more padding.
So she
give her
says,
more money.
oh, you want me to do these campaign events? Well, I want to be compensated accordingly, I'm sure. Well, where do you compensate someone from? You're not from a political campaign to campaign. You do it from the charity, which is illegal.
What would the Democrats say if you were running one of the veterans foundations like this?
Well, we've seen places where that happens with veterans organizations, and once the light of day is shown on it, people freak out, and they should, because people have limited money to give, and they want to give to a cause they believe in. But the Clinton Foundation was never about a cause. It was never about benefiting people. It was about benefiting Bill, Hillary, and Chelsea Clinton. They enriched themselves and built a shadow campaign to run for president. Anyone that's looked at this foundation understands that's what it's all about. And this email right here, WikiLeaks, weddings, personal campaigning, not only is it criminal, but it's wrong.
All right. Thank you so much, Pete.
You got it. Thank you.
A big show still ahead this morning. The man who literally wrote the book on Clinton Cash, Peter Schweitzer, and Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, they are here to weigh in on the FBI's decision to close the Clinton case. But first, Donald Trump's deputy campaign manager, David Bossie, is here to react to the big news as well this morning. That's coming up next. Come on in, David.
I'm thinking you're the girl for me. I'm just...
We're not playing games, right? Hillary right now is fast asleep. She's sleeping so beautifully.
I have the stamina to do it.
Hillary Clinton is guilty. She knows it. The FBI knows it. The people know it.
I'm basically accusing the director of having taken a sledgehammer and smashing the Statue of Justice in the lobby of the FBI building.
This election is a moment of reckoning.
If Trump wins, then America wins.
If you've got a mother, a wife, a sister, or a daughter working, you don't want her shortchanged.
I would hope that women aren't buying into that shtick that's going on right now. A little bit of that, hey, vote for me just because I'm a gal.
Don't boo. Vote! And now it's up to the American people to deliver justice at the ballot box on November 8th.
So the big question is, who's going to be moving into that place at the end of January? It's going to either be a he or a she, and today there's 1 day left.
Right. We will know tomorrow. Tomorrow night, we will know.
Time.
Yeah, I mean, and the polls aren't that far apart. Of the most part, looking at a 2 or 3 point race, but you go state by state at this point. I cannot wait for the Fox poll that comes out tonight. That'll be the final poll going into tomorrow, because on top of who's going to be president, you also got to wonder what it's going to mean for the Senate races, because there's only one really that the Republicans can gain. Elsewhere, they're playing defense.
So there are a lot of things that are going to be answered tomorrow, and in the meantime, Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton crisscrossing critical battleground states in their final bid to become president of the United States.
The Trump campaign making a 6-stop blitz across the East Coast, while Clinton's star-studded surrogates join her on the campaign trail.
Fox News senior political correspondent Mike Emanuel is live in Pittsburgh with the Democrats' last-ditch effort to cling onto blue states. Mike, who thought they would be clinging today?
Fascinating, Brian. Ainsley, Steve, good morning to you. Hillary Clinton's election eve travel reveals some concern that Hillary Clinton is showing some weakness in the Rust Belt, what is supposed to be a blue wall for Democrats. Clinton will start her day making 2 stops in Pennsylvania, 1 here in Pittsburgh. Later, it will be back to Philadelphia once again. Clinton and the President of the United States will be making separate rallies on college campuses in the state of Michigan, typically safe Democratic territory, then a midnight rally in a swing state that all the experts are watching, North Carolina. Clinton's campaign chairman explained the late travel.
Now we're going to Michigan, to New Hampshire, to Pennsylvania, where they do it the old-fashioned way. Everybody votes on Election Day. We feel like we got a lead in Michigan. We want to hold on to it, and we think we can do that.
Late last night, Clinton made a stop in New Hampshire, making a pitch to voters there. Clinton gave voters in the Granite State her closing argument.
We've got to get everyone to believe that this election is about you. It is about you, your dreams, your aspirations, your hopes, your family, your community.
If Trump can break through that blue wall in places like here in Pennsylvania or Michigan, that certainly gives him better chances of getting to the critical 270 electoral votes. Clinton is clearly trying to shut that down in campaign stops today. Ainsley, Steve, Brian.
All right, Mike Emanuel live in Pittsburgh. Thank you very much. Meanwhile, the guy who digs Brian's vest is David Bossie. He likes my vest. Manager. It's okay. How are you?
Caught on
great.
camera.
I'm great.
Good. Listen,
I'm the fashion consultant here.
Right, you said something very interesting in the green room. You go, do you like doing this because it's so new? You go, yeah, I'll do it for 2 months. You only go on for 2 months.
That's right.
Can you imagine doing this for years?
What Mr. Trump has done with his stamina, or truly, and it's reflective in his schedule today and yesterday. But what he's done for now 18 months in this grueling schedule that we've set for him is a testimony to how bad he wants to change America.
Well, there's one more day. Let's just cut to the chase. Are you going to win?
Absolutely. We feel it. We see it. The polls show it. We're excited to get to Election Day. Mr. Trump's going to cross the finish line tonight in a big way, and we're going to change America.
David, James Comey reopened the investigation 11 days ago, then just closed it yesterday into Hillary Clinton's emails. Republicans discouraged, Democrats relieved. What's Donald Trump saying?
Well, first of all, I question Director Comey. I don't know how you go through that many emails. I've served in prior positions in my life as an investigator in the Senate and in the House, and I don't know how you go through that many emails in a responsible way. If you're trying to rush through to get to a judgment that you're already preset or preordained, that's one thing. Maybe that's what they've done.
Well, I got a couple of things. Number one, they said they have sophisticated software to cut through looking for buzzwords. Number two, they said some could be duplicates. And number three, it doesn't mean that there wasn't confidential or top secret information.
There was classified stuff.
The criteria was the same in July. People were outraged because he said there was no prosecutable evidence there. Yeah. Doesn't mean there wasn't confidential information.
And let me just go one step further. There are outstanding cases in federal courts in Washington, D.C., where Hillary Clinton is hiding documents at the National Archives, where they are not making them available under FOIA or even to the FBI yet. So there's a lot more documents out there that we don't even know about.
Was Comey under pressure by the DOJ or by the president?
He was crushed over the last week since that announcement. The pressure has been enormous, and I think he folded, unfortunately, under it.
Keep in mind, the Clinton, for people who think, and I was driving in and I heard on the radio, she's in the clear. She's not in the clear. The Clinton Foundation is still under criminal investigation. And when James Comey said yesterday in the letter, we have not changed our conclusions from July, the conclusions from July were she was careless, she was reckless, she lied about classified information, lied about the number of devices.
And that's why the American people want change. They're tired of the Clintons. They're tired of the criminality of the Clintons. They're tired of the swamp of Washington, D.C. And that's why Donald Trump is going to win tomorrow, to make change for the American people.
Let's talk. What you guys want to do is turn blue-red.
Yes, sir.
And I no doubt about it, people were speculating on why you'd go to Minneapolis. Are you within striking distance there? What poll have you seen? I haven't seen anything you closer than 4 points.
And we have one at 3. So look, we're right there. When we go into a state, we've seen those polls change immediately afterwards. So we were in Minneapolis last night. We had 23,000 people show up. 1,000 people an hour RSVP'd, and Mike Pence is going to go to Duluth, Minnesota later today. We are putting Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania in play, and we're excited that we're going to be right there fighting for every last vote.
David, who's out there campaigning for you? That's the map. We just had the map up of all the people.
For the Democrats.
Different people.
So who's campaigning for Donald Trump, and where are they going to be?
Well, first of all, Donald Trump is going to be in 5 states today. We start in Florida, we go to North Carolina, Pennsylvania, New Hampshire, and then finish in Michigan again this evening in Grand Rapids. Mike Pence is all over the country as well. He has 5 events. But we have Ben Carson, Rudy Giuliani, you name the surrogate list. Ivanka, Eric, Don Jr., Tiffany are all out there on the trail. It's a pretty tremendous effort by the entire family. And look, we're coming together. Reince Priebus is out there also at every turn.
One of the key states that you feel confident about, although, it has been a blue state, it can be a red state, is Ohio. Yesterday, rather over the weekend, appeals court ruled that Trump supporters can monitor Ohio polling places. That's good. And then Peter Doocy, who I have talked to from time to time, he was at a polling site yesterday, and there was somebody from the Clinton Foundation, the Clinton campaign, actually handing out tickets to a Hillary LeBron James event, which is against campaign law, but they were doing it anyway. He tried to figure out who the guy was. Watch.
What is your name, Hillary and LeBron flyer guy?
Yeah, you're not kidding enough to give me my name.
Oh, that's very nice. Are you with the campaign? Are you with the campaign?
Hillary and LeBron after you're done voting. Hillary and LeBron after you're done voting. Love the hat. Good hat.
Are you with the campaign handing out the flyers?
Peter had seen him with the campaign earlier. He had a button on and took it off. They showed the video to, you can't be closer than 10 feet to anybody in line.
To polling. Right. Those guys were in line to vote.
Right, exactly. The Secretary of State in Ohio said, upon reviewing the footage, it is clear that it is extremely questionable, if not illegal behavior. Are you worried about shenanigans?
You know, absolutely. And Republicans are worried about shenanigans every 2 years and every 4 years in a presidential race. We have a very good system across the country going to be watching for this in polling places across the country, whether it's in Philadelphia or in cities in Ohio and everywhere else for that matter.
538, Nate Silver came out yesterday. He's taking some heat on it. But like he gave Barack Obama an 85% chance of winning before Election Day, and we know that he beat Mitt Romney. He now says that Hillary Clinton's got a 65% chance to win to your guy's 34% chance. So it looks like, according to his stats, his analytics, you guys are still within striking distance. He says it's not out of the realm that Donald Trump wins, and he got incredible backlash on that.
Well, I think he's going to end up being right. Look, what we're doing is we're closing at the right time. We're peaking at the right time on Election Day. Our energy and our organization is going to close this thing for Mr. Trump. His message is what's doing it. His candidacy is based on ideas, positive ideas for the American people, hope, growth, opportunity for our futures, for our children's futures.
Donald Trump keeps saying the system's rigged. A lot of Republicans are very frustrated because they agree with him. We just got word this morning that CNN Wolf Blitzer was going to have an interview with Donald Trump. And then the DNC was sending out emails that were released in one batch of WikiLeaks. And they were saying, guys, anyone in the DNC have any questions for Wolf Blitzer?
CNN was asking the DNC for questions.
And the DNC was sending out emails within their committee saying, is there anyone that has a question for Wolf to ask Donald Trump?
And that is exactly what Mr. Trump's been talking about. The corrupt system, it's a rigged system, that the interplay behind the scenes is disgusting. And for CNN to be asking the DNC for questions is outrageous. It's part of why the American people are frustrated, and it's one of the reasons why CNN doesn't have any
And by the way,
ratings.
just so we're not, this is what the latest drop of the WikiLeaks says. If you could put it up real quick, this message was to Wolf Blitzer, the DNC email, questions for CNN. Wolf Blitzer is interviewing Trump on this Tuesday ahead of his foreign policy address on Wednesday. Please send me thoughts by 10:30 tomorrow. And then it runs through little things. I mean, like, who wrote your foreign policy speech? Who your advisor is going to be? What can you tell us about Saudi Arabia and their role in 9/11? So, okay, I mean, to me, Wolf Blitzer can come up with those questions in his sleep. I don't even know if he would be aware of something like that. But does that disturb you?
Of course it does. Look, that's the interplay of the media and politics behind the scenes, and it's quite honestly, it's revolting, and I think the American people will reject it as of tomorrow.
Paul Ryan has come around. He went from "I'm going to vote for Donald Trump," he told us, to "I'll campaign with Donald Trump." Will there be an effort to get the speaker and the candidate together?
You know, he was with Mike Pence just day before yesterday, campaigning in Wisconsin. We were very excited and proud to see that come together. Republicans all over the country are coming together. You saw in Iowa yesterday that every Republican in the leadership in the state of Iowa was with Donald Trump on stage. We're seeing more and more of that. We're closing very fast.
Do you know of an event on Tuesday with them appearing together?
Not yet, but we might have a few surprises for you.
All right, so stay tuned. David, thank you very much.
Thanks very
Good
much.
luck. You can nap on Wednesday.
That's right. Stay with Fox News as we are counting down to this crazy election. We're going to be live for 67 hours straight covering the election, starting with Fox and Friends First tomorrow morning at 4 a.m.
Plug in the coffee pot. Meanwhile, the mainstream media says
that's how it's debates straight ahead.
In Colorado, that gets him the same 270 to 68 total. But it's hard to see how do you lose Florida and win Pennsylvania. The key to Pennsylvania is going to be the vote around the Philadelphia area. What will the turnout be? And again, you and I have talked about this before. Pennsylvania is a state that always looks good for the Republicans. It's tough.
And no early voting in Pennsylvania.
No early voting in Pennsylvania. So all of these late trends, you hear a lot of talk about how Donald Trump campaign has been making progress in the last week. Another state with no early voting is New Hampshire. So that could be good for the Republican side. If Donald Trump can't win Colorado, he could get there by winning Pennsylvania and Michigan. And I think, this is the other story of the election, this whole Rust Belt area. This is the part of the country where Donald Trump is appealing to those workers who are feeling left behind. They're